Good evening, good night. I have no idea what time it is back east. Everyone, this is Brian Neubert from goldenblack.com, live in Matthew Knight Arena here at the University of Oregon, following number 17 Purdue's 65-58 win over number 13 Oregon. Purdue sweeps Bigfoot country in its first trip out here. After Bigfoot country joined the Big Ten, or was forced on the Big Ten, however you want to view it. This is your goldenblack.com rap video. It is brought to you by our friends at the Purdue Club Hotel. Thank you to them, as always, for their support. Their Pacific Northwest location will be frequented by us in the near future, I'm quite certain, as soon as it opens up. So Purdue wins 65-58. If you didn't think the Pac-12 extract was going to be able to play Big Ten basketball, and then you watched a game where it seemed like the first team that got to 50 was going to win, you were proven incorrect, because this was a rock fight of epic proportion for the longest time, and one that Purdue is now built to win. I'm not necessarily sure that's been the case the last few years. Purdue's been an elite offensive program, capable of outscoring anyone and everyone, and that is still largely the case. This is still a really good offensive team that had some problems in non-conference with certain types of defensive programs, certain types of defensive teams. But this is now also a Purdue team that is built to win with defense. I shouldn't say built to win with defense, capable of winning with defense, capable of winning with rebounding. And that really makes this a complete team right now. And Purdue is rolling. I mean, this was their sixth straight Big Ten win ever since Big Ten play resumed. Seventh straight win overall, if you want to throw Toledo in there just for the footnote, that is the 7-game winning streak. And I think this was an especially notable one because we've made much of the presumed difficulties of coming out west for these games. Oregon was the first ranked team in the Big Ten Purdue faced, the first real brand in the Big Ten that Purdue faced this year. So if there was any question, it was worth mentioning with the winning streak to this point that Purdue hadn't beaten anybody good in the Big Ten yet. Now, every win in the Big Ten typically is good, especially on the road, and Purdue had won all its road games since Penn State. But since Big Ten play resumed, Purdue wins at Minnesota, Purdue wins at Rutgers, Purdue wins at Washington. All of those teams are going to struggle to qualify for the Big Ten tournament, let alone the NCAA tournament. This was Purdue's first real, I guess you'd call it, test in the Big Ten, and Purdue passed. And, Purdue is rolling here. As I said, 6 wins in a row. Hard to do in any conference, especially when you've had as many road games already as Purdue has had. But Purdue's looked really good doing it. They've won a lot of different ways. They've had a lot of different guys contribute. And this just looks every bit the part of what, not to toot my own horn here, but after the Auburn game, you might recall I said they're fine. They just need to get away from the SEC. Once they get into Big Ten play, the schedule is going to set up to where they can have some early success, build some momentum. You get into your tougher games, and suddenly things are clicking. Now, when I said that, I had no idea Purdue was going to be a really good defensive team. In doing that, that has been borderline shocking. But Purdue is not just playing well enough defensively; they are playing dominant defensively. This was 2 games in a row now. They've only allowed 58 points. They haven't allowed 70 or more since Auburn, which was a complete boat race. Obviously, nothing was going right that day against that team, and it had everything to do with Auburn and very little to do with Purdue. But Purdue is holding people quiet. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Purdue's holding people under 60. They're shutting down people's best players. Great Osabor makes 5 of 5 threes completely out of nowhere to get to his numbers. But when you look at everybody else Purdue's played thus far, Bryce Williams, Ace Bailey, and Dylan Harper, the 2 kids from Northwestern, Purdue's done a great job on those guys. And, I suppose the 5 of 5 from Great Osobor from 3 was balanced out in the cosmos by Trakoff Moran going 9 of 9 from the foul line today. But it's just one of those games for Purdue where they did enough when they needed to. This is a second half team. This is a team that has another gear that surfaces after halftime. They're not the best first half team in the world. They don't shoot particularly well. They get what they want offensively, but they don't shoot terribly well. But they guard well enough, they rebound well enough to give themselves a chance at halftime, and then they turn on in the second half. Is that ideal? No, but it sure is working right now. And once again, Purdue dominates the second half here. Dominance is a strong word. 35-27 is the second half score, but if you watch the game, you saw a team that separated from Oregon on Oregon's home floor, got not only stops but turnovers when it needed them. This ended up being a 7-point margin, but Purdue was up double digits there in the last couple minutes before it turned the ball over a couple times. Oregon made a couple plays to make for a couple of anxious moments there, and then Purdue made free throws at the end to extend the lead back to a pretty comfortable margin. But just a lot of stuff's clicking for Purdue here right now. Oregon turns the ball over 16 times. Purdue gets 15 points off of those. That's not a huge number, but it's 15 points. I mean, it's a big deal. Purdue drew a lot of fouls in this game. I think that was something this team hadn't been doing a ton of lately. But the rebounding, I swear, I'm sitting right over. I'm pointing at something you can't see, nor do it serve any purpose for me to show it to you. But I'm sitting in seats up here in this corner, right behind this basket at this end of the floor that I'm pointing at. Again, you can't see any of this. This is completely irrelevant information that I'm making note of here. But every time Oregon shoots the ball, you could see a ring of Purdue players around the lane, everybody blocking out, closing ranks around the rim. And thus you see Purdue out-rebound a team that's significantly bigger, significantly stronger, and mostly more athletic than Purdue. You see them out-rebound them 37-32. Purdue gets 12 offensive rebounds to Oregon's 5. Purdue got every rebound down the stretch that it needed. Miles Colvin was like a Hoover, a vacuum cleaner. Not Hoover from Animal House, which was filmed here, but a vacuum. I mean, he was rebounding like his life depended on it. And that's an area where he can out-athlete people. When his motor matches his athleticism and his desire to rebound matches his athleticism, his tenacity, he is really good as a rebounder. And this is complete bizarro world stuff from what I observed of him in high school, and a lot of other people did, because he's the biggest, most athletic guy on the floor. Could have just decided to average 10 rebounds a game probably, and really never did. And that was a real gap in his game that he not only filled in, but he filled it in to the point where it's overflowing now. I don't know how many he even had. That can't be right. He only had 2 rebounds. I remember both of them, apparently. They were both really important moments in the game. They were back-to-back possessions, I think. They were back-to-back stops Purdue got on defense. No problem. And they were just really authoritative rebounds, and that was a big deal. Purdue did an unbelievable job as a defensive rebounding team. As we said before many times, this is a team that does not have the natural advantages it has had before as a rebounding unit. It has to overachieve with effort and camaraderie and awareness, and you're absolutely positively seeing that to every degree in this Purdue team. I wrote before the game, I'm surprised that Trakoff Moran is only averaging 6 rebounds a game this season, and he must have seen that and said, screw you, Neubert, and goes and gets 11. 6 of them on the offensive boards. Now, a few of those were follow-ups of his own misses early in the game when Purdue, again, got what it wanted offensively. It's just Oregon has this big 7-footer there with really long arms, and height and length can bother this Purdue team. to a certain extent, and I think that happened a bit in the first half. So some of Trey Copeland's offensive rebounds were a little bit padded by him following his own misses in close quarters. Nevertheless, 11 rebounds is 11 rebounds. Nobody on Oregon got more than 5. And Purdue, team got 9 rebounds. I don't know how that even is calculated, but Purdue dominates the glass, dominates the second half on the glass based on what I observed, and maybe not necessarily what the stats reflect, but Purdue, again, winning with defense. Oregon is not the most structured offensive program. I think they were just playing AAU ball for a while, throwing the ball around, waiting for somebody to drive. And that led to Purdue fouling too much in the first half especially. But Oregon didn't get a lot of great looks against Purdue's roving help. I'm not even sure how to call it. I can just make this hand gesture and I can tell you, where they tilt their defense side to side, basically, and always have somebody moving in to help. Now, in the second half, Oregon figured out ball reversals on a couple of threes they made to make it a little bit interesting, but that was after they scored 2 points in like the first 8 minutes of the second half, and it was too late. I guess it wasn't too late, but Purdue had plenty of opportunity thereafter to make their game-winning run, game-clinching run, and Purdue made that run. Oregon never did, and Oregon started hurrying up. Not the most disciplined team, this Oregon group, but this was a great win for Purdue. Time will tell how good Oregon ends up being. You know, they had the number 13 next to their name in the polls. They've won some good games. They beat Texas A&M, which Purdue couldn't do. I think they beat Alabama, barely. But they also gave up 109 points at home to Illinois. This is their third Big Ten home loss, ostensibly eliminating them from Big Ten contention. You can't lose that many home games in this league. But they're a good team. This will be a quad 1 win for Purdue no matter what. I don't know if this was the monumental game. This will age as the monumental road win that sort of defines Purdue's season, nor should it be at this point. It is January 18th. So there's plenty more big games to come for Purdue, but Purdue is looking every bit like a Big Ten contender. And a lot of you, I won't name names because I don't remember them and I don't care, but a lot of you threw Purdue on the scrap heap after Auburn. That was my personal observation anyway, and those were very specific opponents, and this was the rare year where things were going to get easier when Purdue got into Big Ten play and not harder. And that has happened, and that has happened aligned perfectly with Purdue all of a sudden turning into this stifling defensive team. Everything Purdue needed to be to start the season defensively, but wasn't yet, it now is. And that has been one of the most striking in-season developments I think I've covered in my million years covering this Purdue basketball program. So this was the first trip for Purdue out here for Big Ten play, and it was kind of what I expected. It was a couple of programs that aren't Big Ten fits. I don't mean that like the caliber of basketball. Washington has had great teams over the years. They've had a ton of great players. Oregon is obviously one of the name brands in all of college sports. They have pros every year. One way or another, they get pros every year. But these places are not Bloomington. They are not Champaign. They are not East Lansing. They are not West Lafayette, where basketball is huge. And these places fill up no matter what. The students drive it. This is the West Coast, where there's a lot of other stuff to do. You can be outdoors. You can be at the beach. Maybe not this time of year out here, but these are not basketball cities. These are not basketball cultures. This is a Saturday afternoon game in Eugene, Oregon. A marquee game against, or arguably Oregon's first real marquee Big Ten game. They're on NBC. The Ducks are on Peacock. And there are empty seats. And the student section is okay. But when these guys go to Maryland, they're going to see what a student section looks like. When these guys come to Purdue, they're going to see what a student section looks like. When they go to Bloomington, when they're not chanting for Mike Woodson to get fired, they're going to see what a student section looks like. Illinois, Michigan State, on and on and on. It's just a different culture out here. It is a different world, and that these places are in the Big Ten now with all the ridiculous logistics and the scheduling cluster, that is involved in this. It's just silly. Football, I get it, fine. But all of these teams are competitively compromised by doing this. Keep in mind, Purdue had to come out here to play 2 games, and they had to stay out here. They were gone for, 5 days? I think I came out here, Tuesday? These teams have to do that every time they play in the traditional Big Ten footprint, which now also, I guess, involves Maryland and Rutgers. So when I say traditional Purdue footprint, I mean the previous Big Ten footprint. And the difference culturally between the Big Ten adding Maryland and Rutgers versus Washington, Oregon, and the LA schools is that at least people from Maryland and New Jersey are naturally angry, naturally unpleasant. So you can come to a game like this and the environment's going to be there because people just want to curse and drink beer. That's the nature of my homeland. This place is different, and it's just not the Big Ten. And I don't think anybody's pretending like it is, but these teams shouldn't be in the Big Ten in basketball. The football dollar is king, though, so here's stuff like this happening. But I'm on my ridiculous soapbox now about what Fox did to the Big Ten. So before I just keep ranting and raving here, on and on and on, to the point where I miss my flight tomorrow. That's what I got. So from Purdue's 65 to 50. Miles Colvin and Cam Heide. I wrote this down too. Those 2 guys were really good in this game. People want them scoring. I understand that. They represent some of Purdue's unrealized offensive potential. They're not making shots. Cam Heide did make a big 3 in this game, a really big 3 that is easy to overlook in the grand scheme of this game. One of Purdue's 2 3-pointers. But both of those guys, I thought, played really well in their roles. Purdue needed big, athletic guys in a game like this because Oregon has all big, athletic guys. And those guys played well. And those guys were an important part of this win, as was Jakari Harris. I have to give him credit as well. He's becoming a very good player, guys. He's becoming a very good player, a very important piece of this Purdue puzzle, and a fitting piece of Purdue basketball culture from here on out. He's going to be a good player at Purdue. He's a good player right now. Cam Heide gets 9 points. I didn't even notice that. How about that? 4 or 5 from the foul line. How about Purdue going 25 of 30 from the foul line? That's I call it a winning instinct sometimes, where a team can kind of turn it on, or they can take a deficiency and make it a strength as needed. And I think Purdue really, really rose to the occasion today at the foul line. Not that it's really something people can control all that well. In the understanding this was going to be a low-scoring game. So, look, you either make a free throw or you miss a free throw. Nobody's trying to miss. Everybody's trying to make every single one. But perhaps it just worked out that way, that in this low-scoring game, when every point was going to matter, Purdue comes up with its best foul shooting of the season on a night when it couldn't make a 3. So that's what I got. I am just rambling again at this point. So, look, I'll talk to you guys again whenever Purdue plays again. It seems like they play every day. I think it's Michigan next, isn't it, or Ohio State? One or the other. They come back, short turnaround. Again, these schedules are insane. The schedules are not what college kids should be going through. These are not professionals, even though people view them as professionals now, as is probably fair. But that doesn't mean they're not 18, 19 years old, 20 years old, or in Oregon's case, probably 25 years old. But these schedules are such a grind. They shouldn't play this many games in these condensed frameworks of times. It's just not right. It's not appropriate. It skews things competitively for one thing, and always a good sign when my computer goes to sleep in the middle of my video. I'm right there with you, computer. Anyway, Brian Neubert here from goldenblack.com, following Purdue's 65-58 win at Oregon. Thank you to the Purdue Club Hotel for your support as always. Thank you for watching. Thank you for reading. Thank you for listening. And thank you for processing our materials, however it is you process our materials. And thank you once again to all the Purdue people out here in Seattle and Eugene who came up and introduced themselves, said hello. It really reminds you how much of a presence Purdue has coast to coast here. Purdue turned out really well at these two games. All these West Coast people who probably don't get back to Mackey Arena very often can get here, and that's going to be an advantage for Purdue moving forward every time they have to come out here. So that's what I got. Thank you, everybody.